Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's going great because the listeners have done our job for us. That's our very favorite kind of show, and that's the kind of show we're doing today.
It's the best time of year. It's the best kind of show, and none of these. I didn't come up with any of these. You didn't come up with any of these. These are just, hey, I throw it on Twitter. Hey, we want to do some listener questions about the Michigan game. What do you want? What do you want to know? And we can give you the information. Because Tom, that's what we do. We have information, we give it. We don't keep it. What good is it to keep it from other people?
The season for giving, Tony. That's what we do. That's the time of year. We'd be jerks if we didn't. That's what I think. And we'll get to jerks later. We have some questions that I wasn't thrilled about later. We'll get there. But let's start with one of our favorites. El Suzabo she says, I'm a nervous wreck with a playoff bid on the line. Are you guys?
It, no, it's not nerves, it's excitement. That's what this game does for me. And then especially when you're there that day, like you get there at crack of dawn almost, and you just like it may be 30 degrees out, but it doesn't feel it. Like your blood is warm, and it's just there's excitement all around. Now Ryan Day on Tuesday was like, he was asking like, so it's the rivalry game. It's Michigan. That's big. Now you're playing for the Big Ten championship for an opportunity to go to the playoffs. Like, what do you think about all that? He's like, yeah, you try not to, because that's just way too much. Like, you just keep it focused on Michigan. This is what they've been working for all year long. And I kind of feel the same way, where the game is enough. There's stuff that goes along with it that it's tied to. And yes, you have to win this game if you want to win the Big Ten East. And then if you want to play Wisconsin or Minnesota or Purdue or Iowa for the Big Ten championship. But that comes afterwards to me. Like, it's a byproduct of it. I don't almost feel like that all of that stuff being on the line is secondary to winning the game itself.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game that defines your career at Ohio State. This is the game, people will always ask, what was your record against Michigan when they see an old player. And, that maybe that's a little bit less true than it was, 15, 20 years ago. But if Ohio State loses once or twice, it will be extremely true again. So you don't want to be the guy who is not 4-0 against Michigan, because Ohio State has had a number of classes in a row that have been 4-0 against Michigan, or 5-0 for the teams that, the and-O has been the consistent for several Ohio State senior classes in a row. You want your senior class to be able to say the same thing. So yeah, it is the greatest rivalry in all of sports, as a number of people have said, as ESPN Sports Century determined in 2000 when they were, doing the best rivalry in all of sports. They said Ohio State, Michigan. So there's plenty on the line, even without thinking about all the other stuff that is potentially on the line in the future if you win this game.
And going back to 2000, you have to go back to 1999 and 2000. The last time Ohio State went 2 years without winning this. So if they were to lose this one, like, you'd have a gap in just think of all the gold pants that have already been produced. I have nowhere to go. Like I'm sure they've been well ahead of schedule on this stuff. They just, print them as you can. And now they're just sitting there. And if they were to have to sit there for another year, plus now that'll depreciate the value of them. We don't need to go there, but just check eBay. But yeah, like it's been a while since Ohio State has gone 2 years without winning this one. And certainly they don't want that to happen this year, of course.
And you have only one player on Ohio State has started this game before. I mean, that's Thayer Munford, and that's it. End of list. So there are a lot of people who would like to get a chance to stamp their names on the rivalry, and this may be their only chance. So that's probably enough. That's probably all you need to really be excited for the weekend. Next one from @fun_magnets. What have you heard about how Jim Harbaugh is approaching the rivalry this year? Has he put more emphasis throughout the year this year, and any countdown clocks in the Michigan athletic facilities? Now, he did. There's a wall in there that says, "What did you do to beat Ohio State today?" That was something that Ohio State has had for quite a while. That was something I remember when Cooper was still the coach at Ohio State. What did you do to beat Michigan today? And that's sort of been the mantra in Ohio State for a long, long, long time. And, Ohio State has the team up north period. Michigan has brought in the beat Ohio period. That's a new thing this year. Jim Harbaugh had for a number of years kind of downplayed the rivalry a little bit. This isn't the thing that completely defines us. And meanwhile, Ohio State is just with murder in their hearts 365 days a year. And you see how that's worked out for the two teams respectively. So that is something that I think Jim Harbaugh has learned from. So now he's changing his tune a little bit. They seem like they are much more emphasizing that the beat Ohio period is, it sounds like it's essentially an Oklahoma drill where they're just, stop the run and in a short yardage kind of situation. And, that's I don't know that that's necessarily what it's going to come down to, but if you win the line of scrimmage, you tend to win this game. So I guess, Harbaugh may be onto something, but yeah, definitely a change in philosophy up there this year.
I know they've also added little signs on the way into the locker room that the players touched that says at least you tried. So
grape job. Yes. Some of the true classics. Next one from Mr. Bombastic. Have your expectations of CJ Stroud exceeded those of Justin Fields at any point in his OSU tenure? If not, do you think they might be heading into next year? If so, how close is CJ to becoming the greatest Ohio State quarterback ever? If not close, what's he missing? If close, how much more can he reasonably improve his game next year?
I think we're going to be talking a lot about this all during the off season because at this point, if you look at the number of times he throws the ball compared to Justin Fields in his first year of starting, it's way more this year than it was in 2019, where you would have Justin Fields throw the ball 23, 24, 25 times in a game, and that was about it. Now they had J.K. Dobbins and they like to run the ball, but right now to see what he is doing, what CJ Stroud is doing, I read this question and I'm like, gosh, there's something to that where like right now CJ Stroud is already, you can project him into the top 3 of all time. If this is what he is, like every year, 40 touchdowns, 7 interceptions next year as well. Like he's Dwayne Haskins, he's Justin Fields. Like who else is in that group? And if this is what he is his first year, he's going to be. He's doing Dwayne Haskins stuff right now. Mm-hmm. Now, what separates Justin Fields is the running ability and the ability to escape. So he's going to. I don't know how to compare those two in terms of like, if you want one drive, give me Justin Fields until I see otherwise. Like that Clemson game is going to stick in my head forever in terms of toughness, accuracy, drive. We have not seen that from CJ Stroud. You haven't really needed it. The one time was the Oregon, the second game of his career, trying to avoid getting sacked so he can complete a pass, throws an interception at the end, but also did some escapability and picked up a first down that was called back for holding. But a lot of talking to say my expectations of like, I don't know that I've expected anything more of CJ Stroud than I expected of Justin Fields, because I think Justin can make every throw that CJ Stroud is doing. They're just asking Justin Fields to throw it more. And when I asked Brian Day, like, have you asked him early and midway through the season, are you asking him to do more than you did any other quarterback? He said, not more, just some different things. And so I think he's doing different things. My expectations for next year are going to be pretty close to perfection. Now they're going to lose some receivers. You lose Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. That you got to dial it back a little. But how close is he becoming to becoming the Ohio State quarterback? Close enough that I don't think it's out of the realm that we know by October 15th next year.
Yeah, for sure he's in the conversation. I think there's some context that we need to provide here, which is that CJ Stroud had a year with Ryan Day, and it was not a great year, and it was not a typical year, but Ryan Day, he had a year with Ryan Day in 2020. He did not throw a pass, but he was sitting in meeting rooms. He was working at practice. He was doing all that kind of stuff. Justin Fields walked in cold from Alabama, basically, or from Georgia, and had to just immediately start that first year. So Stroud has a little bit of a head start on Fields, so that's something you need to at least kind of consider. I kind of need to see it on the bigger stages now.
Mhm.
Like what's his biggest win? Penn State at home, Nebraska on the road, Minnesota on the road. Like, I mean, it's fine. And he's been pretty good in those games, and good to great depending on the games. But now you got Michigan. Now you get the Big Ten championship. Now you get a college football playoff. Now you get the potential national championship game. I've seen Justin Fields in all of those games. Those are the games that are going to define your legacy at Ohio State, and who, you can pile up lots of regular season numbers. And if you lose to Michigan and you lose in the Rose Bowl, or you lose in your bowl game, or you don't make the playoff or whatever it is, you're not going to be the greatest. That is part of the legacy. So I kind of need to see Stroud not only performing those games, but at some point in his career, he needs to have the Justin Fields versus Clemson game. It's Fields was pretty darn good in both of those playoff games. Obviously, this year in 2021 was kind of otherworldly against Clemson in the Sugar Bowl, but you kind of have to grade him incomplete. But yes, he is absolutely put himself in that conversation where, with a few more good performances, if the next 4 games are look anything like the last couple games, then we can have that conversation, because then he's probably a Heisman winner at that point. He's probably a national championship winner at that point if the next 4 games look anything like the last 2.
I don't expect that to happen, though. Do you?
I don't think so. I'm not ruling it out.
No,
but this is a first time starter. You have some real nasty defenses coming up. Michigan is probably the worst of the 4 defenses you're going to play moving forward, and Michigan's defense isn't bad. Wisconsin's defense is very, very good. You're probably going to have to go through Georgia at some point. There are some real challenging weeks ahead. If he can do it, then he could potentially be in that conversation in January if he has 4 more games along the lines of what we've seen. And I'm not even saying like 450 yards and 6 touchdowns against Georgia. That's not realistic. But if he can move the ball against Georgia and they win the national championship, I think we're having that conversation for sure.
And unfortunately, Justin Fields, his second year was during COVID. So
right.
Who knows how amazing he would have been without having to deal with all of that.
Right. I would really love to have seen that Ohio State-Alabama national championship game with Ohio State with a full team and with the ability to actually practice between the Sugar Bowl and the national championship game. That seems like that might have changed. And a healthy Trey Sermon, like all of those things seem like they may have changed the outcome of that game more than a little bit. Next one from @OhioState_SBS. Is this the most confident you've ever been in an Ohio State offense heading into the most important game on the schedule?
Go ahead, Tom.
I think that it's in the conversation. Part of that, I think the offense is fantastic. The offense is far and away number 1 in the nation in SP plus. Part of that, I think this is not as great a Michigan, or this is probably a better Michigan defense than they've had in some recent seasons. So maybe, there's, the opponent factors in there a little bit for me as well, but just in terms of, the offense clicking on all cylinders, it has to be up there. I mean, they have had some great offenses in the past where, I'm just thinking through 95, 98, 2014 was firing pretty well at the end of the year. Honestly, 2016, they had some 62-3s in the middle of in early November, and that offense looked unstoppable. And then it got very stoppable later in the year. So there were some, 90 or 2018, the offense looked pretty darn good. The defense wasn't great. Yeah, they couldn't run. But man, could they throw? So yeah, and this has not been a completely unstoppable Ohio State offense within the last month. I mean, they kind of bogged down in the red zone a little bit against Nebraska, against Penn State. So I think it's up there, but I don't know if this is like top of the charts for me.
The 2019 Ohio State offense was pretty good. Just looking at their season stats, they had some 500-yard games, 600-yard games, the 700-yarder against Maryland. They came into the Penn. They had like 417 yards against Penn State to kind of take you down a little bit, because then you had the banged up Justin Fields, and you're like, well, if he was healthy, I'd have all of the confidence in the world. Right now, I don't know if I've ever felt better about an Ohio State offense based on the offensive line, the surrounding talent, the skill, the receivers, the running back, the tight ends. Like we said it before the season, this is the perfect offense to put a quarterback in who has never thrown a pass, like completely set up in every single facet offensively. So, I think the only thing that maybe takes some of my confidence away is just how good Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo are, and then also this being a different scheme than what CJ Stroud has seen in the past. There's a lot of standing up. There's a lot of just different numbers, and the picture changes. And we know Ryan Day talks about that a lot with the quarterback, where the picture doesn't change. It's like pre-snap is the same as post-snap, and the players are still where they're supposed to be, and that's that's easier to attack. And these guys will move around. Sometimes it's two defensive linemen, sometimes it's five, sometimes you never really know who's going to be standing up, who's coming. And so I'm interested to see how he handles that. That's why I think there might be a slow start, and eventually they'll get it figured out, because that's what they do. They adjust. Ohio State's offense adjusts and they get it done. But I don't know if I could be more confident in an Ohio State offense right now. In 95, I was very confident.
Mm-hmm.
And they scored 23 points. That's how that went. So confidence can, doesn't matter to us. Like confidence isn't going to get us beat. We're not playing, but I think they're confident for a reason. And Tom, that question comes from our buddy Ryan Van der Haar of, we know him. This is part of his podcast. The trying to plug it here for him, and I've lost it. Silver Bullet Saga podcast. So give that a listen. One of the longtime listeners of the show.
Right. And next one from another longtime listener of the show at @VanGo_0. It has been 15 months since Day told the team they were going to hang 100 points on Michigan after Harbaugh accused him of cheating. What's your first half prediction for Ohio State points? This is, I kind of laid out earlier the two scenarios where Ohio State gets off to a hot start and the roof falls in, or Ohio State gets off to a slower start and, it turns into a 4-quarter game. I think the most, they're not putting up 49 points in the first half this week. That's not happening. But, if they had, if everything's going right and they were at 28 or 35 at halftime, and that's not, I'm not expecting that, but like, is that about the best case scenario for you in your mind?
I exactly had 28 points in my mind in terms of a conservative ideal. Like things aren't going perfectly, but they're going pretty well. You'd have 28 points on the board. Things are going better than expected is 35. I think as expected 28, because you're talking 6 or 7 possessions probably in that first half. Score on 4 of them. That's a pretty good outing against on the road. These kind of stakes where sometimes mistakes are just made and things happen. And so, 20. Would I be shocked if it's 42, 35? No, I would not be shocked by. At this point, I don't know how to be shocked by Ohio State's offense anymore, unless it's 56. But 49 would shock me. 35 would be like, yeah, we talked about it. Like anything more than that is probably going to be pretty surprising. Not that 28, 34, 35 wouldn't be. It's not what we're expecting. So if it's beyond what you're expecting, is it surprising? I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't think I would, if someone tells me, I want you to tell me how many points you think they're going to get in the first half. I don't know that 28 is going to be my answer. I think my answer might be more like 21 to 24, maybe. Because I don't know when we're releasing the show. We're probably recording this way out of order based on when we're actually going to release them. So as of the moment that I'm actually speaking to you, I have not put my game pick in yet. I feel like I'm probably going to end up in the high 30s, low to mid 40s for Ohio State. So 21-ish for the first half is probably about right. If it's 17, is that a disaster? No, probably not. But, 21, 24 is probably about where I think what may be the most likely outcome. But the error bars there are pretty significant where, what worst case scenario, 14, maybe best case scenario, 35, 42. I mean, there's going to be a certain point. There is a certain best case scenario that looks, adjacent to some of the recent Ohio State games where they get up and then the other team starts pressing and then makes mistakes and then it just snowballs and Purdue botches a kickoff or Michigan State just looks like they just want to die. And then you get some short fields and then things really snowball. I don't think that's going to happen against Michigan, but I couldn't tell you, if Ohio State's up 14-0 in the middle of the first quarter or 14-3 in the middle of the first quarter, and it's like, all right, Cade McNamara, you'd better go do something or this is going to get out of hand. That's when, how confident are you in Cade McNamara or true freshman JJ McCarthy, who has not played a whole heck of a lot, to come out and really, make a play when they absolutely positively have to in a pressure situation they haven't really faced yet? Because I saw JJ McCarthy against Michigan State in that kind of situation, and it didn't go great.
No. Was it 2 years ago or 4 years ago where Ohio State had to lead and then Michigan came back in the second quarter and like at the end and they got some cheap points and
that was 2018, right before halftime. They scored 14 points in like 15 seconds. The Mario McCall botched a kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So they would need to, do you think, say you've got in your mind the first half, how many more points +7, +14 are you thinking in the second half? Because I feel like they're going to score more in the second half, unless they score so many in the first half. They don't need any points in the first half. I think I'm thinking like +7, +10, +14, somewhere like that for the second half.
The only way I see them like +14 in the second half is if they're at like 14 points in the first half and then they're getting the ball to start the second half. And then, you can you score and then you get a quick turnover or something and get it back. If they have the good first half, they're not going to score as much in the second half. If they have the bad first half, they're probably going to score more in the second half. That like is kind of like, I don't know if that's even insight, but like I feel like they're going to end up at 38 or 42, and whether the 14-point half happens in the first half or the second half, like, I don't know, but I feel like they're ending up in that 38 to 42 range, something like that. Next one from @Potsy710. Why is Tom always wrong? I'll hang up and listen.
Let me answer that one.
@Potsy710. You're a jerk. Hey, I'm right about that. Guess I'm not always wrong. Boom.
I don't think Potsy's a jerk. So yes, Tom, once again, wrong.
I'm sorry. I really missed the punchline there. Sit on it, Potsy. Topical.
You know what? We could get into some Happy Days talk, but we are going to try to keep this to Michigan. So tune in for our other daily podcast, Happy Days Talk, afternoons.
They're potentially playing Wisconsin next week. It would be very topical next week.
Oh, there you go. Happy Days memories. That's a good idea, because I've got some, and I'll just say it now, like some of my very most stressful television moments are Happy Days episodes. We can get into that. Not right now.
Involving sharks and water skis, I hope.
Well, there's that one. We're going to get into it if you want to get into it. Then, as I mentioned in the show a couple of weeks ago, the Malachis and the Demolition Derby. And then don't forget when like the Cunninghams went to like a dude ranch or something, and Joni was on a horse carriage that breaks free from the horse, and Fonzie has to catch up with it, maybe on his motorcycle or on a horse, and then hit the handbrake because she's a damsel in distress and is unable to help herself. So very stressful.
Well, horses don't have handbrakes, so I'm going to guess it was a motorcycle. Well, no, on the wagon. Okay, sorry, I was you meant the handbrake on the horse.
Oh no, horses do have handbrakes, Tom.
I haven't been on a horse in a while, but I don't think I remember that. It's from @Tony_Lisa13. I feel confident Ohio State will win comfortably. I never feel that way about this game. Tell me why I'm wrong, or am I right?
Oh, danger, Will Robinson, danger. Confidence, comfortable confidence is something that's rat poison. That's Nick Saban's rat poison. That's something back when Luke Fickell and Urban Meyer were at Ohio State. You can't say comfortable. You can't be comfortable. Confidence, sure. But now confident that Ohio State will win comfortably, never feeling that way about this game, knowing how most games have gone. And now you're feeling completely different than most other games. That no, I think I think you're probably right, but you're wrong for thinking this way and for having this attitude and for putting it out there. That's where I am on this, Tom.
Well, how are we defining comfortable? Was 2014 a comfortable win for Ohio State? Because I would submit that it was not. They won by 22 points, but it was close into the fourth quarter, and JT Barrett breaks his leg, and it was like, oh boy, how's this going to go? And then they kind of closed the deal. 2012 was not. 2013 was extremely not. 2014 really was not. 2015 was. 2016, I mean, they had them obviously the whole way, but I wouldn't technically call it comfortable. 2017, you need Mike Weber to score a touchdown with 5 minutes left or something to make it more than a one-score game. 2018, it was dramatic into the second half, but largely because of that thing we talked about earlier with the 2 touchdowns in 13 seconds or whatever it was. So, I mean, that was fairly comfortable. That was like mid third quarter. You felt like, okay, and this one is over. 2019, pretty much the same. That one was over relatively early. There was like one good drive Michigan had, or 2 good drives in the first half, and it was like, oh, maybe. Oh, nope, blood everywhere. Okay, so yeah, they've had 2 in a row, but really only 3 over the last, since Urban Meyer got here, and 2 of those were in Ann Arbor. So I don't know that you can necessarily point to Ann Arbor as definitely, cursed ground or anything like that. I mean, what are the odds? How are we defining comfortable? 3-score win? They're up by multiple scores the entire second half. Michigan never has the ball with a chance to tie. How are we defining comfortable here?
2 touchdowns from the start of the fourth on.
2 touchdowns from the
they're never within a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's
arm's length.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about Michigan never has the, it's never within 2 touchdowns. I think that's possible. I think Michigan never has the ball with a chance to win or tie is possible in the fourth quarter. I think that's somewhere between possible and likely that it's not if it's at that point. But I'm not picking a 35-point win or anything like this. I don't think it's going to be the Purdue game or the Michigan State game. But again, like 42-24, 42-28, something in that range. And then, your mileage may vary as far as how comfortable that is, I guess.
Do you think it's because we've done this the first year we've done Michigan Monday after every single game? Have we provided this feeling of confidence for Ohio State fans based on our resounding ability to tell you what Michigan has been doing? Do you think is it our, I don't want to say fault, because if it comes true, then we told you so,
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure I'm willing to accept what could be the responsibility for some extreme psychological damage if it does not go well. If this is a shocking Ohio, so I'm not sure I'm willing to accept that burden. So I'm going to say no. It has nothing to do with us, and it is purely opinions that people have formed on their own.
Fair.
All right, next one. Speaking of psychological damage, from Scott Duda, how many national titles would John Cooper have won if he'd have been able to beat Michigan regularly? And this is an interesting question because he had multiple teams that were in that national championship hunt until they weren't, which was generally mid to late November. 93 was, they were 5th going into that Michigan game. You're probably not winning a national championship that year. That was Florida State won it with with 1 loss. So maybe they win. They get into who did Wisconsin play in the Rose Bowl that year? Was that a UCLA team, I think? So they go to the Rose Bowl. Now the trap door under your feet is, so, okay, John Cooper has solved his Michigan issue. You want to find out John Cooper's record in bowl games or nah? Because I'm not sure we've solved all the issues even by solving the major issue. But 93, maybe you get in there, but I'm not sold on it because again, Florida State was ahead of them going into the bowls, so I don't think you're gonna. I don't think a win over UCLA is going to get you over there. 95. That's 95 is they really, really, really should have won that game. You beat Michigan. you go out and play a very average USC team in the Rose Bowl that year. That was a USC team that beat Northwestern, but Northwestern was only in the Rose Bowl. Tony, I don't want to hurt any feelings, but Northwestern was only in the Rose Bowl that year because they didn't play Ohio State. That was a Northwestern team that lost to Miami of Ohio. It was a lovely story. Sometimes the schedule fairy blesses you with a schedule that doesn't have Ohio State on it. Very coincidentally, those tend to be the years that Northwestern has good seasons. How about that?
Like 1996 as well.
Yeah. Hey, we'll get there in a minute. Don't you worry. So yes, that's a. I think 95 might be the one. If you get them through Michigan, I think that was a Nebraska year.
Oh,
I don't know if you. I don't know.
Greg Belisari and Ryan Miller against that.
No. I mean, they're not playing. They're not playing Nebraska. They're playing. Right, they're in the Rose Bowl. This is pre BCS. This is pre everything. So this would just be Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Maybe it's a split national title, but I think there's a decent possibility that what happened to Penn State the year before happens to them, which is, hey, you go undefeated, you win the Rose Bowl. And at least Eddie won the Heisman. And then 96, yeah, I mean, if they beat Michigan, obviously they went to the same game they would have gone to had they beaten, whether or not they beat Michigan, go to the Rose Bowl, play Arizona State. Does Ohio State have, feel additional pressure against Arizona State and not win? I mean, maybe, but, Ohio State was still theoretically playing for a national championship in 96. So I say 96. Yes, they do. Because then Florida beats Florida State in the Sugar Bowl after that. And Ohio State's the only unbeaten team in the nation. So I think the answer is 1, because 97, they had a loss to Penn State. So you're not getting a national championship over Nebraska in 97, even if you go out and beat Wazoo in the Rose Bowl. So, and then 98 Michigan was not the problem. So I think the answer is 1 with 96. Have I talked you through it? Do you agree with me? Tell me why I'm right.
Well, what about 99 and 2000?
Speaking of psychological damage.
Yes. No, yeah, 96 is the right answer. Because and they showed that they could do it as well. Like if we're for the and they should have. That game was at home. The Michigan game was at home. There's no reason to lose that game. They were clearly the better team.
Should have been up 21. Should have been up 21-0 at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
Don't kick field goals in big games, kids.
There you go. And that's a life lesson Tom learned that day that has stuck with him forever. But he also probably knew back then. Like I remember thinking, it's too many field goals, man. This is we are dominating this game, and it's 9. We've got 9. Not a good feeling.
Yeah, that was that was as soon as Sean Springs, you had the Sean Springs slip Ty Streets touchdown. It was like, oh, okay. I see. Okay.
It's happening again.
Yeah. There were still like 28 minutes left in the game. And it was like, nope. No. Okay. No, this is about to be deeply unfortunate. And it was, I have been in, I think I've told the story in the podcast before, but I have been in a game at Mountaineer Stadium, at Milan Pushkar Field, at West Virginia University one time in my life. It was for the 2007 West Virginia Pitt game. And let me tell you, I was reliving the Ohio State Michigan game that day, where it was like this terrible opponent who's, the arch rival, but has no business being on the field, and just a bunch of little stuff goes wrong. And you can just feel everyone in the stadium just puckering up. And it was like, oh Lord, it's happening again. I can't believe it's happening again. It was the eeriest feeling of deja vu I think I've ever gotten in a college football stadium. Next one from @_fun magnets. With the passing explosion last week, is there a chance Ohio State comes out pounding the rock with a fresh Trey Henderson and really focusing on the run game before hitting them deep? Got to keep them on their toes. It could really give Ohio State an advantage.
This is something I've been saying a little bit, teasing a little bit. I think we might see some running game early on. I know they've been throwing the ball, coming out, throwing the ball strong against their opponents, but if Michigan is going to lay back and not necessarily, but play more coverage, then I think maybe this is a way for Ohio State to feel out what Michigan is going to do with their defense, with their front seven, with the defensive line. And it's going to require excellent communication from the offensive line and excellent execution, which you go back and you look at their other games, Nebraska and Penn State, that wasn't there. Now they've picked it up. Things have gotten better, and they're clicking on all of their cylinders right now. But I think this would be a way to ease maybe ease CJ Stroud into this as well. But you're easing CJ Stroud in it by handing the ball to a true freshman. So
Mm-hmm.
how easing is that? But then I think they will run the ball more. But this is still Ryan Day has such confidence in CJ Stroud, and he's almost willful. He's like, no, we throw the ball. This is what we do. This is our offense. And I don't care who's going to line up against us. That's what we're going to do. And even that, Tom, maybe more of a will, like imposing your will by throwing the ball 9 yards here, 12 yards there, 3 yards there for the first down. Like that may actually be more imposing of your will because Michigan may be thinking we're going to drop back and stop the pass. And if they can't, and they can't get to the quarterback, then it's like, well, now what do we do?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think I'm talking myself more into they're going to maybe be more run heavy than I was thinking. It'll be more run, they'll try and run it first, or at least, try and run it early. I'm going to give you a total rushing and total passing for Ohio State over-unders. Rushing 175, passing 350. Because I feel like they're only going over one of those. But I feel like they're definitely going over one of those.
Yeah, I would say under the 350. 175 might be right on. But going over 350, it's just like that's asking a lot. Not that they can't do it. It's just anytime, any game you're thinking like last week was a different, like over 350, sure. How much farther over? I don't know, maybe 50 yards. And but I would be more surprised if they go over I would be more surprised if they go over 350 than 175. Not that they can't do it either. I just think 175 would be easier to come by.
If they're over 175 rushing yards, what is your confidence level scale of 1 to 10? Confidence level that Ohio State wins if all I tell you is Ohio State has rushed for more than 175 yards. And that could be 176 or that could be 350.
Probably about a 7.5, 7.5. Because it's not a lot of yards. It's right around their average at times, but it is establishing the line of scrimmage. And there is something to that. And knowing that if it's a lot better than 90 yards. I mean, that tells me something, and it's a lot better than 130, 120. So it's significant. We've seen such crazy rushing numbers from Ohio State over the years, especially in this game. It's like 340, 322, 336. Like, I don't expect that. So you kind of have to like take it down to what Ryan Day usually does this year, really just this year. And so 175, I think that's a good number for him.
All right, next one from @Buck Michigan. If Harbaugh can't win at home with his best team yet against an OSU team with marginal defense and freshman quarterback and running back, should he just give up coaching and become a khakis model? I'll hang up and listen. I mean, is this the best chance he has to beat Ohio State? I don't know that I feel that's necessarily true. I mean, Ohio State has a really good, yes, they have a freshman quarterback and running back. They've got a real good offensive line and pretty good depth. The defense isn't bad. The defense is fine. Ohio State fans are keep calling it marginal or like meh. And it's like 14th in the nation in SP plus, something like that. I'm going to look it up right now. 14th in the nation in SP plus in defense. I mean, that's pretty good. You can move the ball on them at times if you're doing certain stuff, but you're not necessarily scoring. And, the bad performances jump out to you a lot more than the good ones do. But I don't think this Ohio State defense is bad, especially compared to what it was earlier in the year. So, this is probably is this the closest point spread in recent years? I'm going to guess that's what you're looking up. Is this the closest point spread in the Ohio State Michigan game in recent years?
What is it even right now?
The last time I saw it was like 9 or 10 or something in that neighborhood.
Yeah, because last year it was 30.
Yeah, last year it was 30, which was like, man, I want to see this because it's like either this is going to be one of the greatest bloodbaths in series history or one of the most shocking upsets in series history. And of course, we didn't get to see it.
But Michigan was a 4.5 point favorite in 2018.
Okay, yeah.
So,
yeah.
But is this team better than the 2018 team? I think so. In terms of the Michigan team.
Yeah, I think this is his best team since 2016 at least. And this is very good Ohio State team. I don't think this is the best Ohio State team I've ever seen. I think, I mean, going back to, let's just go back to the start of, Ryan Day walking on campus in 2017. I would probably have the 2019 team first, and then maybe this one next, and then 2020, and then 2018, and then 2017, right?
Yeah, I would have to put 2018 ahead of 2017 simply because of the quarterback and the ability. If you were to face a championship caliber defense, he would give you a better chance to beat that team. So, yeah, I think that's where I am. And this may be Jim Harbaugh's best team. It may just come at a bad time.
Yeah, that's kind of been that's kind of been the story for him. Just I mean, like, stuff is happening, stuff is kind of coming together at times, and then that much in 2016, and if they win that, they go to the playoff. Do they get murdered in the playoff? Yeah, probably, but they, then you potentially win the Big Ten, you go to the playoff, and then that completely changes the narrative around these two programs.
I mean, even 2017, knocking the starting quarterback out of the game at home, you're leading at that point. Like, this is set up for you to win. Now take it.
Yeah. And then, John O'Corn throws a terrible interception, but your quarterback is John O'Corn. So, like, that is a thing that's going to happen when your quarterback is John O'Corn. 2018, I mean, it felt like they were set up to win in 2018. I think I remember doing a bunch of shows that week between the Maryland game and the Michigan game, and we were doing the, here's what it takes for Ohio State to win, and here's what it takes for Michigan to win. And it was like, you didn't have to think real hard about here's what it takes for Michigan to win, and like, here's why Michigan might win. It was like, well, did you see Maryland just score 51 points on this defense? Like, and that was a good Michigan team. But, as we have said a couple times this week, matchups are important, and sometimes you have Brendan Watson and you're covering the slot, and it doesn't go great. And so, yeah, that's but yeah, I mean, this is a good Michigan team. This is arguably the best one since 2016, but this is also one of the best Ohio State teams since 2016. So I don't know if I feel they're doomed forever if they don't win this game, because I don't feel like they're like destined to win this by any means.
Yeah, that 2016 team, I was looking at some numbers. Michigan has had 4 games of 500 yards of total offense this season. They had one between now and the 2016 season, like 2017, 18, 19, and 20. One game of 500 yards. So they're certainly doing better now. There's something else that I wanted to touch on, and it may have, but I've forgotten. And I don't think it was about the khakis model thing. So I guess we can just move on. If it comes to me, I'll go ahead and mention it.
Was it his pants on fire a couple weeks ago?
No, but that is amazing.
All right. Next one from @mville_BUKI. How can any Buckeye fan ever want Michigan to be good? This is the worst week of my life when they are good. I want them to lose every game and actually be able to enjoy my Thanksgiving. #remember the 90s.
I'm of the opinion you should root for Michigan, because if you really want them to suffer, having them be undefeated and their only loss be to Ohio State is more painful than them getting to the game, realizing they have no shot. However, I also understand the nature of not wanting a stressful week this week, or, leading up to this, where you just realize, what, they're not a threat. Like 2008, I wonder how happy people were. Like, okay, don't have to worry about Michigan because they lost to Toledo. We know they're not going to do anything. 2009, same thing. 2010, roughly the same thing. But I think there's some luxury there. But at that point, if you're no longer concerned about a team, that's how you prefer them, then you've lost your way with the rivalry, I think. It for it to be an effective rivalry, it has to make you uncomfortable. And if you are comforted by it, then no. You need to be made uncomfortable. And I'm not one of these people that says Michigan needs to win in order to make the rivalry better. No, just appreciate what you have and enjoy the wins. And you should not be able to just enjoy. You can't just enjoy this week. There has to be some angst There has to be some anguish. It can't be a happy time. You have to lash out at your family at times. This is Michigan week. This is real. It can't just be fun and games.
This shouldn't feel like Rutgers week, and that's I think an important thing. Like they have to be good enough, and I'm right there with you on. I have never ever bought into Ohio State needs Michigan to be good in order to make the college football crap. Ohio State wins out and handles their business. They're going to make the college football playoff because they're going to get the benefit of the doubt because they have the track record, and it doesn't matter whether Michigan is 10-1 or 5-6 this week. It doesn't matter. Like Ohio State, if Michigan was 5-6 this week, it would not materially impact Ohio State's college football playoff case at all. Not a bit. So I think that's true most years. I've never, ever bought into that. However, a little bit of drama is not a bad thing around this game. And, I feel like, it's easy to look back in retrospect at 2008 or 2009 or some of those other games where it was just, in retrospect, it was like very obvious that Ohio State was going to just stomp them. And then they did. I mean, I remember sitting in the car with you on the way up to the 2019 game, and I think we were with someone else from another site, maybe driving up there. But I remember someone saying, like, all week I felt like Ohio State was going to win this game by a bunch, and it's just like the morning of the game, it just feels like, I don't know. Like you can talk yourself into anything. And if you were old enough to remember the 90s, as the hashtag in the question asked, mentioned. You will never assume anything. So you might as well beat a good Michigan team. If your goal is to see Michigan fans suffer and be miserable and unhappy, during the Rich Rod years, Michigan fans were checked out for this game. Like it was just, I don't know that they watched more than the first quarter, like just in case. It was like, oh, nope. Okay. Nope. I mean, if your goal is for Michigan fans to have a bad experience, and that is, based on my Twitter mentions, that seems like that is at least a secondary goal of Ohio State fans this week. You want them engaged. You don't want Michigan sites all writing about basketball and hockey this week, because that means they're not paying attention and no one's thinking about it. You want Michigan fans to be engaged and to be walking out of that stadium just devastated in the third quarter or early fourth quarter. That's what I think you want. So
yeah, the 95 loss, the 96 loss, the 97 loss, those hurt. 99, 2000, like, what do they matter? It's the stakes. You remember the 90s, hashtag remember the 90s, because of those painful losses. That's the memory. That's the tattoo that you want to put on Michigan fans. That's what you want them saddled with. So enjoy Michigan fans enjoying the season and having their hopes built. And the thing is, like, they're afraid. Some of them are afraid to get their hopes up. And that's a shame as well. Like, you encourage your Michigan friends, be like, hey, you guys are doing really good this year. You might have a shot. You guys are going to get it done. Encourage them, lie to them if you have to. That way they can then feel what you have felt. And thereby you can live vicariously through their pain and use their energy to make yourself feel fuller.
Next one from @fun_magnets. There's been lots of talk about the bad blood between Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh. How hard is it going to be for Ryan to take his foot off the gas and keep players fresh for the Big Ten championship if things get ugly early and he has a chance to really rub it in? I mean, I know the hashtag hang 100 thing was a thing last year. This is not a Michigan team you're going to hang 100 points on. Last year, like, legitimately, they might have hung 100 points on Michigan if those teams had played. That was a thing that very well could have happened last year. This year, it's not going to happen. And I think you saw last week what Ryan Day is going to do. He's going to get up, and then he's going to get out. And he's not going to risk CJ Stroud getting hurt again in the third quarter of a game that they're up by 35 points. Like, that's not going to happen. I think he might keep Stroud in a drive longer than he might have otherwise, because Kyle McCord didn't look real good last week, and he's not going to want to risk Kyle McCord not looking real good in Ann Arbor. But I think you're going to, he is not going to, he's not necessarily going to be real tempted to be running TreVeyon Henderson between the tackles with a 28-point lead in the fourth quarter, or have CJ Stroud in there with 5 minutes left in a 4-touchdown lead, trying to stretch it to a 5-touchdown lead. If they're ahead, I don't know that they're going to be ahead by that much, but if they are ahead by that much, he is aware of the big picture. He is aware that they have another very tough physical game coming up the next week, and he's going to want to get them ready for that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and just think of the way Justin Fields was banged up at the end of each season. Mm-hmm. And if you can get them out as quickly as possible, you do it. And then also, when we've talked to players over the years, like what game do you feel just the most blown out after? And it's always Wisconsin. When Wisconsin is on the schedule, that is the one that the hitting is the hardest, and you are the most sore after. So knowing that that's also what's on the horizon, and Wisconsin has found their running game mojo again, and knowing this is a road game, you get in, you get out, and you win the surest way, and then get everybody out, and just make sure that. And the good thing is Michigan's offense isn't like the kind. Like I think there was some nerves against Purdue. They kept guys in for a long time because Purdue can strike quick. Michigan not necessarily like that. So I don't know at what point they feel comfortable. Is it 28 points? And again, will they even get there? That's another question. But certainly, in this theory, in this hypothesis, if is Ryan Day going to be like, you're supposed to drive with one foot? Is he going to have like right foot on the gas, left foot on the brake, and be like, this I can't choose which? But I think he will side with the brake.
Yeah, I mean, he'll at least, I think, ease off the gas. I don't think they're going to have a 28-point lead at any point on Saturday. I would be very surprised if Ohio State, no, not very surprised. I would be fairly surprised if Ohio State had a 28-point lead at some point on Saturday. But, if they do, I don't think he's going to have any issue easing off there. Last one from at MJ Yaney 76. I have concerns for Michigan's tight ends matching up with Ohio State's linebackers. It is a weakness in the defense and a strength for them. Tony, do you agree?
I do agree. I think this is one of the areas where Michigan has an advantage and can make use of that advantage. We've seen Eric All race to the end zone on a long catch and run against Penn State for the win. It's not just him. They've got some other, they play three tight ends regularly, but Eric All is the guy with the most targets. Luke Schoonmaker is the other guy. And All is the more dynamic guy. So he's going to present some issues. I think what they did last week with Donovan Edwards is going to create issues as well, and getting those running backs involved in the passing game. They've done that with Blake Corum, some swing passes and some screens. Sometimes he catches about half of them. He's had some bad drops this year. Who knows if he's going to play? I'm sure Jim Harbaugh is not going to speak any words on that that could lead to anybody knowing the actual truth. But I do think, and Tom, it's Michigan. Of course, the tight ends are going to have their day against Ohio State. I think the good thing that for Buckeye fans is there are no fullbacks that are going to have some crazy screen or throwback play. But I do expect Eric All to be targeted quite a bit in this one. What about you?
Yeah, and I think the big thing with Eric All is if your concern is about Eric All, and Michigan's concern is about Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Those are both concerns, and they're both potentially viable concerns. But one of those concerns is substantially bigger than the other one. So if Ohio State is succeeding in the passing game with their three wide receivers, and Michigan is succeeding in their passing game with their tight end, like Jackson Smith and Jigba has had a 240-yard or whatever game this year. I don't know how many passing yards Eric All has this season, but I'm going to guess it's not substantially more than 240 over the course of the whole season. So, there are scales, scale issues here. Yet Donovan Edwards is kind of the one who's a little bit more of a wild card to me because he is fast, shifty. Eric All is not a big play tight end. He's not a big play receiver. Donovan Edwards is someone you could see, you get behind someone and you make the safety miss and you go 70 yards. Eric All is not going 70 yards unless he's doing it in the span of 8 catches. So that's at least not against the Ohio State defense. So, I think, yes, that's a potential concern. There's a reason neither Tony nor I are going to pick Ohio State to shut out Michigan this week. And it's because Michigan has some play. Well, probably. I can't speak for Tony. Probably Tony's not picking Ohio State to shut out Michigan this week. But I do think that Michigan has players. Michigan has guys who are going to make some plays. Michigan is going to score some touchdowns on Saturday. They're probably going to score multiple touchdowns on Saturday. I would be fairly surprised if their score did not start with at least a 2 at the end of the game. But if Eric All is your concern on one side of the field and the 3 Ohio State receivers are your concern on the other side of the field, I don't think those scales balance.
No, certainly not. I think we did it. That's all of them.
That's it.
That's fantastic, Tom.
If you're wondering, if you did not hear your question answered and you're wondering, why didn't I hear my question answered? Well, your question is probably answered on the Morning Scoop Buckeye episode, Morning Scoop episode that we did, answering some of these other questions. We wanted to space them out a little bit and do a bonus episode on that feed as well this week. So check out the Morning Scoop feed and subscribe there. You will hear the rest of your questions there, and also a bunch of other good shows this week. Had Bill Green on Monday, Bill Bender from the Sporting News on Tuesday, Ross Fulton on Wednesday. So always a good week. We'll do probably a press conference show at some point this week as well. So that should be a good entertaining feed for you. So subscribe there as well.
Definitely do that. I want to thank you all for those questions. It's always, again, it's a fun show to do. It's an easy show to do, but that's neither here nor there. It's about the fun, not the ease. So I want to thank you all for those questions. And if you ever have any questions for the podcast, I know some of you hit us up in the DMs. Feel free to do that. Twitter, mentions, emails, whatever, we'll find you. So thank you for those of you who do that. And I guess that will do it for today's episode. We will be back tomorrow with something else, some more Michigan talk, perhaps. Who's to say? Maybe some other college football stuff as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you later.